Hello, and welcome back to Not One Right Way, the podcast. It's me, Melissa Manuel, she, her.
And it's me, Marve Yaga, they, them, theirs.
We're back. Marv, how have you been? What have you been up to? What are you watching?
Good. I was telling Melissa this earlier, but I got a Costco membership, so I'm officially this time actually an adult. And I was most recently rewatching Vincenzo with my parents.
Nice. My favorite K-drama.
Yes, it's real good.
I love Vincenzo. Congrats on becoming an adult, officially, for real this time. Just like how I name all my files. It's like, this is the last one, I promise, I swear. Final, all caps. Costco membership.
Yeah.
We just canceled our Costco membership actually because it's too far. And in LA, the Costco parking lots are very scary. And so we've decided it's not worth it anymore.
Fair. Fair.
But yeah, happy for you.
Yeah. I only got honked at once in the Costco parking lot, which pretty big deal.
Good day all around then.
Yeah. How about yourself? How are you? What you been up to? What you watching?
I'm good. I just been working. I've been planning a trivia night for my coworkers. It's Monster High themed, and I'm just nervous they're not gonna like it. That they're gonna think I'm not funny, and I need to get an A+ in funny, which is a normal and achievable thing. So we'll see how that goes. And I have been watching so many things. Oh, the new season of Abbott Elementary is out, and it's the perfect sitcom of our generation, I would say. I'm really enjoying it. And the seasons come out quick and fast, and there's 20 episodes-ish.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're back in the 2010s. It's beautiful.
Yeah. That's one thing No, I'm going to stop myself right there. Melissa, you know my feelings. This is something we can talk about at a later point. Bring back 20 to 24 episode seasons. That's all I'm saying. And I'm biased, of course. I think you're hilarious. But I am also the person that did a comedy class with you that we did technically pass. Even if we weren't that funny.
We were not funny. I don't know why we thought we were funny enough to take a comedy writing class. I'm gonna move on from this to introduce our guest for today, who is way cooler than us. Joey Filipiak, a senior animator who has worked on so many games that I'm excited to dig into. A good friend of our past guest, Rin, passing on the torch. Is there anyone you know that you think would want to come and chat with us and talk about their experience in the industry?
My friend Joey that I worked with on WWE 2K24 would probably be great. He has a lot of fun experience in the industry.
It's very exciting to do they were mentioned and now they're here. Welcome, Joey.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to speak with you both.
Yeah,
we're happy to have you.
Well,
Joey, we're going to start off with some hard-hitting questions, as we do with all our guests. Marv comes from nonprofit social work. They like to dig deep, go right to the trauma.
Right. It's true. You haven't heard it all until you've been doing intake for teenagers. That's besides the point. What I'm interested in is you, Joey. So, first question, right off the bat, favorite mixed drink?
Favorite mixed drink?
Yeah.
I like Manhattans a lot. So I would say that counts as a mixed drink because it's whiskey and vermouth, so it's mixed together.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
the only part of a Manhattan I like is the little cherry at the bottom.
No.
Um, I
You
like
can't go wrong with that.
yeah.
Joey, what kind of cherry you like in your Manhattan?
There's these maraschino cherries, but they're like this really dark color. I don't know really what they're called. I kind of just look at I go to the store if I find them, then I just buy it.
Yeah.
They're the fancier ones. They're not like the bright red ones that you find on a cake. They're just
Yeah, but you
a
can't go
little
wrong with those
fancier.
either. Those are
I like
delicious.
those.
I will eat a whole jar of those with no complaints.
You're a good person, Joey.
Because
My
I
fiance often says they taste like wax and they're garbage, and I disagree. I think they're delicious. So it's good to know that you like them too, Joey.
yeah.
Feel validated.
Yeah. So, next question. Do you have a favorite appetizer? A little amuse-bouche?
Favorite appetizer? There's so many. I don't know. I'm a big lover of like Vietnamese egg rolls and Filipino, like I guess it's sort of the same, kind of the close lumpia. So I guess I would say like egg rolls are probably like my favorite appetizer. They're just so good. When you just find like the perfect ones and just want to just go to town.
Yeah, yeah. Do you have a favorite sauce that you like pairing with your egg rolls?
I kind of stick to like sweet chili, like the Thai chili sauce. If I feel really nuts, then I'll do like a spicy, crunchy, like peanut sauce.
Okay, nice. Yeah. Do you have any thoughts about duck sauce?
Duck sauce is good. I never really ate that much of it. Usually it was like usually on fried rice. It's kind of that's kind of where I went with it.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't know duck sauce was a thing until I just like ordered takeout one time and it was in there and I was like turned to the person I was eating with and was just like it's a duck sauce? What even is that? And it's pretty good. But apparently a lot of people are like that's my go-to. And I never heard of it.
Yeah,
So
it's
I
kind of like
felt
candy to me.
I love to hear that. Um what kind of candy do you enjoy? Duck sauce? One. Any others?
Uh, I I don't eat so much candy nowadays. But like sour Skittles are still one of my absolute favorites. Um, love me some sour Skittles and Puchao, the Japanese candy, like little soft candy.
Yum.
They have cola flavor and it's amazing. It's some of the best. It's some of my favorite candy to eat.
I'll have to check those out.
Yeah,
Do you know
right.
to get them?
Yeah,
You sell them like in Little Tokyo?
yeah, for sure. There's a place you can get them at Marukai, the market there, or even Nijiya in Little Tokyo.
It's good to know. Hot tips. I'm always looking for new things to try. Now, I'm curious, it's around the Halloween times when we're recording. What's your favorite Halloween movie or spooky activity?
Hmm. I watch a ton of horror movies. It's like my whole thing. But my favorite Halloween movie, I would probably say I don't even know why I'm trying to think. It's like I don't have to. It's Trick or Treat, which is like the ultimate Halloween movie. I was actually talking to a friend yesterday. He told me he had never seen it, and I first asked questioned our friendship, but then I told him that it's like the penultimate Halloween movie. It's got everything. It's like a slasher. It's just got so much to it. Probably the best anthology ever made, and every anthology of Halloween that's come after it is just trying to rip off just this. And Sam is probably the cutest like villain, I guess if you could even call him that, like spirit, malevolent spirit that has ever been put on film or anything else. And pretty much he can do no wrong. It's like oh, okay, he's just and he just like murdered somebody, but he's adorable. He's just like a little child running away in like pajamas and a pumpkin head. What can you get? What gets better than that?
If they're cute, it's fine.
Yeah,
No
Yeah,
crimes can
exactly.
be committed.
yeah. It's like, if it's a crime, it's only a little one, right? They're a baby.
Yeah, exactly. He doesn't know.
That's great. I don't watch scary movies because 'cause I'm a big baby. So someone who loves them, I'm curious if you could, I don't know if pitch is the right word, but describe what it is that you love about horror movies, scary movies. What draws you to
Uh,
them?
um, I don't know. I think it just depends. I grew up around a lot of like different folklore as a child, and it all tends to like just kind of draw on the what's gonna get you to bed, why you shouldn't go out. You know, those like
Mhm.
old tales that people would always tell, like, "Oh, you shouldn't do this because this is gonna happen to you, or this will come out." Um, so I think it's just the weirdness of it, not knowing what's gonna happen, and just the adrenaline rush, I guess you could say. It's kind of like what I used to get from like watching them when I was a child. I was always scared of them, but I loved them so much, and I didn't know why. It's just like I just need that next rush. But nowadays, it's like I really like just good storytelling, something that's creative, uh, or just done well, less like special effects and stuff. Because you have so many different types of films where it's just like okay, drama, like there's good drama, good acting, stuff like that, but I feel like horror movies let people focus more on being creative, and I love that in all different aspects. It's the writing, even the way like people die in horror movies is like what's the most creative kill. Like it's ridiculous, I love it. Stuff. And, to just a side note, like, I watched a movie the other day I've never seen before, surprisingly, and it was about haunted, sculpting clay. It was a Japanese movie called Vampire Clay, haunted sculpting clay, and it was just ridiculous. It's absurd, and I absolutely loved it. It's just
That's
it was
awesome.
a fun movie. I think, it's just, that and just what just seems like it's so, like, out there for you, like cosmic horror and stuff like that. It's, like, one of my big favorite things. So, anything that just makes you, like, think, like, "I don't know. Could there be someone there? Could there be something out there, like, looking back at us? I don't know."
Yeah. I would say that's also one of my favorite parts of horror. I remember getting into a debate with somebody about, like, the difference between horror and thrillers,
Mhm.
and I feel like a thriller is, you know what's following you in the dark. You know that they're trying to kill you or whatever. But with a horror, it's like the entire time you're wondering, like, "What actually is this?" And I feel like leaving a horror movie with, like, "Maybe I need to rewatch it, like, maybe there was something I missed." Like, that I feel like is like, "Ooh, that was good. I need to, like, go back and see again if I missed something," or, like, maybe there's, like, maybe it didn't die, or I don't know. But for me, like, the questioning of it, I think is really fun.
I 100% agree. There's, like, so many I watch a lot of, like, Italian slashers too, like
Mhm.
giallo films and stuff, and even those, like, they get very supernatural, and it's just like, "Wait, okay, these things wait, this happened here, okay." Then you start piecing things together, and it's like a fun little, like, brain puzzle, so it's like keeps you
Mm,
thinking. So I don't know, they're very fun to me.
yeah.
Thank you all for sharing. As someone who's, like, on the outside of this, I wouldn't know if fandom's the word, but culture of loving horror, I really have a lot of people in my life who love it, and I'm always like, "Good for you." But I always appreciate people who really love things. That's why we're here, hon honestly. So, thank you for sharing. I'd love to know, what's your background, Joey? Where did you grow up? Where did you go to school? Did you know you wanted to be an animator from the get-go? Share your story.
Yeah, I'm actually from Texas. I moved around quite a bit, so between back and forth from Texas to Florida, and then I moved out to California and Los Angeles in about 2010. The short and sweet of it. But as far as wanting to be an animator, I think ever since I was younger, I've always wanted to do something with art. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I grew up like kind of for what I would say would be like normal for being from Central Texas. It's not very middle class, but a little bit lower, but not extreme lower class. And I saw a lot of different things. I'd watch movies and cartoons, obviously, and see these things. I never knew it was really a career. It was like something I could ever do. So I just kind of just did art, and I was like, "Oh, I wanna do art someday, but I don't know, it doesn't really seem attainable." Maybe that's something, like, you have to be, like, really high up to do, like, socially, and I just kind of let it slide and just worked, like, jobs and stuff like that, but it was like, "No, this is, like, attainable, I can do this." So, I was here in Los Angeles, and when I first moved out here, there was a school I had saw, and I was like, "Oh, I really wanna go." It's like, "Ah," but, doubts creep in, you don't know, and I was like, "Okay," and I just put it off, and, like, a couple years go by, and then I decide, like working as a cook is boring. I don't like this. I want to actually be happy and I want to do art. It's like, you know what? Maybe I will look into this school again. And my then girlfriend at the time, now wife, like encouraged me, like, yeah, I think you could do this. It's like, okay, I like you believe in me. I really want to do this. So I took the jump. I did it. And I've been working in the industry now for 7 years. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, that's kind of how I got into animation. I went to school. It's a school called Noman. They do a lot of visual effects and stuff for like everyone there works in the film industry. A lot of the teachers work in the film industry, so it's like you're working with animators and like modelers and everything else to actually work on big productions and indie productions. So they have hands-on training. It feels great. That's not like how other schools are like, oh, we have teachers that you're just like learning from someone who really hasn't really been into practice or they did it, but a very, very long time ago. And things change in this industry so fast. So I was excited to start there and just go through all the programs and decided I wanted to be like, maybe I could be an animator like I've always wanted to. so
Yeah.
so I just stuck with it and then 7 years later I'm still an animator.
That's awesome. Is Newman like a traditional 4 years bachelor program? Or what type of school is Newman for people who don't know, like me?
Yeah, no problem. So Nomen is it's when I went there it wasn't. It was 2-year or 3-year program. And it was just that. It was kind of like a get in learn these things, get like solidified, and then move on to working in the industry. It was just certifications. And then when I was leaving, they actually started doing a bachelor program. So now it's a 4-year bachelor program, but before, no, it was a certificate.
That's pretty cool, like a vocational technical sort of program for people
Mhm.
to just come in and get the skills that they need, which is nice because I don't know if everyone really needs the 4-year route when, like, you just wanna learn the art, the craft.
Yeah, exactly. And I went to school before that. I was going to school to to be a software engineer. That's kind of when I decided I is like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. It's like taking math and like more like political classes and everything else. Like I didn't care to do that because when I was doing that, I was doing art instead of doing my work or like sitting in
Yeah.
class and drawing or doing something else. I always had a sketchbook on me ever since I was younger. So it's like I was like, oh yeah, maybe I shouldn't be doing what I'm doing now.
But here you are doing it professionally.
What was your first job? Like, how did you quote unquote break in?
Uh, the thing that I loved about the program that I went to with Nomen, they have like someone who would kind of be like the liaison between us and other studios. There's like student services, and they would talk to them. They'd be like, "Hey, we have these graduates. Like, are you guys looking for somebody like internships?" So they would like help set us up with internships for studios. And I actually started my first internship my last term of school, and it was for a smaller studio here in Los Angeles. I didn't know anything about them, but I saw the stuff that they worked on. I was like, "Oh, I've never heard of this place," and they've worked on so many things. So that's where I started. That's kind of like how I broke into the industry was as an intern. It was just really funny thinking about it now because it's just like when you're on internship, you kind of just get like credit, like school credit, and then like a little bit of money just because that's how it is. But
Yeah.
and so it's funny because I was talking to someone recently, and I told them, they're like, "Oh yeah, how was your first job?" I was like, "It was great." Then they're 'cause, in this industry, a lot of things that come up is like, "Well, how much should I be getting paid like as an animator?" Stuff like that. It was just like if you really want to know, I started my internship like I started in this industry making $10 an hour
Yeah.
and
Well,
getting all the experience that I could.
$10 an hour is not enough for LA living.
Yeah, definitely, and it was like a couple of hours a week, but I was in school full time as well, so it was like going back and forth between that and, school, but, like, it was the funny thing is, like, when I was making that, I was like, "Alright, awesome, I have a paid gig in the industry, I'm in."
Yeah, it's the balance of like, well, I'm in school, so like a job is good, even if it's not enough. And also because so when you do start applying, they're like, you need experience, even if it's an entry level job. And you're looking at the application, it's like 2 year experience, entry level, and it's like, this doesn't make sense. So even if you're not getting paid a lot, what's the trade off?
Yeah, I got the most experience I like, a lot of the most valuable experience from that job, so I'm just forever thankful because that kinda just helped keep me going.
Yeah. What would you say is the most valuable lesson you learned during that internship?
It's hard because, one of the best things that I learned was learn to be a little bit versatile. I just learned to be flexible, on the things that I did. I was willing to learn anything and everything that they put in front of me, uh, and I think that's why it's like I've been able to just go through different paths in the animation industry working on video games, film, and television because I was so open to just doing it because they're very different.
Right.
That's fair. What would you say the biggest difference between those mediums are?
Just the way you animate film is very fast paced. You have to be you have to think on your feet a lot and learn how to be independent. Same for television, especially if you're working on episodic stuff. For final animation, it's like you got to get in there, get out. Like we don't have much time to think about it, but you need to make it really good. It's still got to be the best work you've ever done, and don't second guess it, which is really hard being an artist in general. And games is, there's so many different things in games that gets split up as much of itself too. Is it's like, oh, are you doing in-game animation, cinematic animation, weapons,
Mhm.
props? It's like, what do you have the time and the patience to feel like you can do, but still doing everything on a very tight deadline?
Yeah, games animation, it's like you almost need a specialty within the departments of like you mentioned, there's so many different types that I don't know if everybody hears about unless you're actively working in it. I learned when I started my first job in the industry was in games, and when I started learning about the whole pipeline, and I was like, there's so many subsections to every department. and everyone has to become an expert within their specialty, and it's not something I ever heard about unless I was in this position that I got.
Yeah, it's insane.
Oh man, there's so many stories when people jump in. I have my own. It's just like the great thing about the school that I went to is they teach you about pipeline. They're like, oh, you have to make sure you name things a certain way. You have to make sure you do this because if you don't, then you're kind of really going to screw it up for somebody down the line, or you could just ruin a whole project. Um,
Naming things is so important. That was one of the first my first day at my, gaming job. I messaged an artist, like, "So what's one of the first things I should be aware of as a production assistant?" He was like, "Naming. Make sure everybody names things appropriately or it'll break everything." I was like, "Okay." Yeah, naming.
oh yeah, I've worked on so many projects where someone has gone in there and made an update, but forgot an underscore. So everyone, it's like, what happened? All the renders are broken.
The build's broken, everything's dead. Yeah, naming is one of my biggest hurdles in life now. Ugh, especially when it came to because I was on the production side, it's like if the design team came up with the names, but they weren't they didn't work for production, and then we had to organize everything and they didn't make sense. But we couldn't change them because again, it would break everything. It was a lot of battles of being like, can we please change the names for the next season so that they make sense? And design was like, I don't understand, why don't they make sense? It's just like, oh, okay. So
The
I had
worst
a lot of
ones are when they're misspelled. That's
yeah,
always my problem because I'm like, oh, this is misspelled and it bothers me so much. It's just like, yeah,
you can't fix it.
just fix that. Someone fix it. And when they have to make another version, they're like, oh no, we have to keep it. And it's just like I'm staring at it for however long the production is, and like I feel like I named all
Typo.
my files wrong. Yeah, it makes me feel like I named everything wrong, and because when I have to submit my work, and it's just like, oh man, this makes me feel like I'm slacking.
It's not your fault. It comes from somebody who just I'll just name it like this, and then it haunts the rest of us
Hmm.
forever. I feel really good having this conversation because it's just been sitting in me, I think.
I'm not bothered at it by all. So if you can't tell,
Yeah, I'm so chill.
naming doesn't
Chill.
bother me. I'm fine. I'm a normal person.
I'm normal and adjusted.
Um, I did not expect this conversation to talk about file naming so much, but I'm so excited because it's like there's this hidden world in somebody's files, and I'll never see it, which is great. But I know that you live with it, and now I know. Now I know.
Just know that any video game or movie or show, there's a producer or animator out there struggling with the naming.
Yeah.
And 1,000 final versions. Final. This is legit the last one. Underscore 25.
Final, final. All caps, I promise. Final. I lost track of what we were talking about. I got so distracted by the naming.
Um,
I think you were talking about what we learn in our schooling in terms of the practicalities, and they taught you about naming, which is
Yeah,
great.
just how to not destroy a pipeline. Yeah, sorry. I will go off on like a million tangents and splinter things. But yeah, the I learned from the school just working the pipeline. They taught us a little bit of it. So going into the studio was actually not as terrifying, but still very terrifying because there's just gosh, there's so many things. This is like you could delete something and then ruin everything. I've been on, and some people like there are safeguards in place. It's like, but even one of the last projects that I was on, someone who just started, they like checked out the whole thing, the whole project, and then they accidentally deleted it. But luckily, there's backups for that. So these are the kind of things that like we learned when I was in school, but I could say it helped, but it made me terrified when I was in the studio. So I was just like, "Don't do this, don't do this, don't do this."
Yeah, that poor person.
It
Be
happens on
horrified.
almost on every project.
Yeah, that's crazy. So, I'm wondering, can you share with us some of the projects you worked on? Do you have any favorites? I feel like we've been very anonymous. What are your top projects you've been able to contribute?
Yeah, I've worked on quite a bit. There are some that aren't out, so obviously you can't talk about those, but some of actually, I think my favorite one that I've ever worked on is still my first one. My first starter project into the animation industry was for the Guardians of the Galaxy animated TV series. I did 2 episodes of that, and they were just being a starter animator, fresh in the industry and even, working on my internship with this, it's the amount of work I got to do and hands-on in this thing, it was insane, and I actually discovered something recently that made me chuckle, but I started this project from the very beginning to the very end, so I was working on the blocking and the previs animation for it, and then I went from there to working on the actual animation that's going to be in the show, and just, like, working with the animation director side by side, like, literally, he was right behind me, I just turned my chair around, and I could just smack him in the head. He was the one tend to do that to me. It was a fun project, and so that was, like, a probably that will be my favorite project I've ever worked on. It's had so many it had 2 different styles, one of them was, like, stop motion, so it was like the Rankin and Bass, like, animation for the Christmas movies and stuff like that, so that was a lot of fun. I've worked on the Indiana Jones movie, the latest one. I It's like some stuff for Borderlands, like cinematics. I've worked on my other favorite one, which is a lifelong dream, like came true. I can't believe it happened. Was working on Mortal Kombat 11 for in-game cinematics as well, and
Very
it's
cool.
like that. That was my game as a child playing Mortal Kombat, so it was a really big hype moment for me. I was really excited the whole time working on that, and a lot that I could probably list off, but we don't have all day.
Yeah, there's some terms that I'm sure people may not know. Marv, maybe you didn't know them either. I watched some of your reel before we talked. Is it was it the ones with Rocket? That's the Guardians show? Okay.
Yeah,
And it said previs, blocking, and layout.
yeah,
Can you share with Marv and the listeners what those mean?
yeah, of course. Like, so previs is the pre-visualization. It's you're letting everybody know what the shot's going to look like, but it's the most primitive form. So going back to that moment that made me chuckle is for the one that you were talking about, Melissa, was for Rocket. It When I animated that one, my animation supervisor, when I was doing the previs for it, he's like, "Make a very basic shape." He's like, "A cylinder with a head and some sticks for arms." And so I did that, put some little eyes on it, and I moved that around in the scene, and that was the previs that I had for that, and it was just because we didn't need anything fancy for our previs. And Disney did a behind the scene when that episode was coming out, and it had my previs of that little
Oh,
character
that's
on there,
awesome.
and it's like it had my initials on because they were playing the whole file, so it had the file name, spelled correctly, and then my initials at the bottom
Heck yeah.
the back end of it. So previs is just laying everything out for everybody to say like, "Hey, this is how the shot's going to look," and that always comes after, storyboards and obviously story. So that's previs. Layout is when you're kind of deciding like how where the shot's going to go through and take place. Just like, okay, well, this is the room and the character is like going to be moving through here. This is where they're moving through, and this is what it will look like here. This will look like there, and so and yeah, so layout is kind of the same thing as previs in a sense. And what was the other one? Sorry,
I think it was blocking, but maybe blocking goes in with
blocking.
the previs.
Yeah, so blocking animation with that one for Guardians specifically, blocking was when I was actually just when I had the actual characters and I was putting them in the scene and figuring out like just actually doing very basic animation onto it because you do blocking and then you go into spline, which is making that's where everything just moves a little bit more fluid. Blocking is just like moving stop motion. It's like little here, little there. And then you go into like the spline animation and then final polish animation. So I started all of that from the very beginning, from previs, and I went all the way through final animation on those 2 episodes.
That's awesome. How long does it take to do that whole process?
It really depends on the project. For that one, I think I was working on 2 episodes simultaneously, so I think it took us like probably like 6 to 7 months to do all of it. And which is insane because no one will know by watching it, but there was 6 of us working on this show.
Mm. Wow.
Crazy.
How many people usually work on an animated show?
Oh, it could be a lot. Some shows it just also depends on the budget. So
Mm.
some shows could have like up to 20, 30 animators depending on how time sensitive everything is and the budget. And some shows you could have like 6 people with 3 animators or 4 animators. And then you need someone to render it all out. And the funny thing is, after I finished that, I was also they also let me edit everything together and go in and do compositing. So the way the show the way the show looks is like I had a big hand in it. So I think that's why it's like my favorite. And then, but it's a Disney property, so they also went in there and they did their own editing on top of it too. So, but
Mm,
I don't know, it was fun.
that's very cool. You definitely learned a lot then because you got to practice so many different steps of the pipeline.
And it was because I was just willing to be open and I had stayed there after all the other animators had gone. It was just me and one other animator who were willing to take it all the way to the end.
Mm,
Solid. Yeah.
thank you for sharing and teaching a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. It's so hard to remember too because it's like you don't want to like just tell everybody. It's like so, but you also just forget not everyone knows this, so you just kind of ramble through it.
Yeah.
For sure.
Still a really great story. I feel like from what I've heard about the industry, it's not often that you get to have like over what's the word I'm looking for? Like a sense of ownership over the amount and the type of work that you're doing. And you're talking about how you're working with this director, like specifically to create the look of the show. And that's like, oh, that's like really cool. And then just to see it through all the way to the end, like I can imagine that feeling of just being proud of like having done it and the sense of ownership of having seen it through the entire process. Like, what did that feel like for you?
It's it feels very liberating and very it also it just shows that I made the right choice. That's kind of what it makes me feel like. It just, bit of a reassurance like, "Hey, yeah, you're doing good. Like they trusted you this far. Like you're on the right path." So it feels really nice cuz like you said, you don't really get a sense of ownership at like kind of at all in the animation industry. And it's kind of one of those things you have to be okay with. It's really nice when you have a shot and you're like, "That's my shot 100%. I did all of that." Like, it looks great because sometimes you do something that passes all the way through, the final animation, it's been improved, but then you get a director who's like, you know what? I like that, but now I'm kinda thinking we do this, like, and take this out." And so someone will go and you'll have your file, but to say, "Oh, you want them moving, like, over here like this to the right or something," and the director's like, "Oh, I want them reaching to the left because we messed up." Then we can't just flip the shot. And So someone goes in, it's the same thing, and then now it's moving different way, different facial expression or whatever, and it's not your shot anymore. So it's like,
Mm.
oh wait, hey, I don't remember doing that. Okay, someone else got their hands on it. Oh well, like what else do I have? So
Yeah.
it's kind of a it's a lot of collaboration in the animation industry. So you have to be okay with things not being yours 100%. So when they are yours, it's very fulfilling.
Hmm.
That's fair. I was wondering, speaking of the animation industry as a whole and as an animator, things probably don't feel super great right now with all the layoffs and everything and the ongoing negotiations that are hopefully going well. Where do you see it from your perspective as someone who's more, would you describe yourself as a freelancer?
Nowadays, yeah, I would.
How, what is your perspective on how things are going and what do you hope for?
I think that everyone's just trying to see what they can get away with. It's like I don't know, I have to bite my tongue a lot on it, but I think a lot of people want to see how fast they can pump out things that are just kind of what's gonna get to streaming the fastest, what's gonna um, make sense for their kind of like their bottom line, which I get. But I feel like it's still gonna take some time because these negotiations started almost 2 years ago now. Actually, I know a lot of the writer strike and the director strike didn't happen until April, but stuff was already happening before that. So things started to slow down a lot then. So now we're coming on 2 years of it already as far as, what's going on in the animation industry, and now we have the animators talking the guilds are talking to the studios and hoping that that goes better, but, they just extended a little bit. So I think that a lot of people, it's like, are trying to just I think a lot of it has to do with AI. So it's like, what's going to be like, what can we get away with in that aspect of using AI? Are we going to be allowed to? Are artists going to be willing to do it? You have your ones who are, yeah, it's fun, like it's fine, it's whatever. And then you have other people who are like, no, we don't want to do this at all. It kills creativity. So I think a lot of people are just trying to figure out where that line is of
Mm.
killing creativity, removing jobs, but also getting products out of like in terms of TV shows, movies, and all that stuff. So I don't know where it's going to go. Obviously I'm hoping for the best. So it's kind of just a waiting game at this point in time. Just wait around and see what's going to happen.
Yeah, that's all we can do for now. Hoping for the best. Totally fair. And in our last few minutes, I'd love to hear the story about how you met Rin.
Yeah,
Good friend Rin.
Rin is really awesome. I actually met Rin. So last year, I started working for the same studio that I started in, where I started my animation journey. And that's where I met Rin. We kind of hit it off like fairly early because it's just, we're both like, we both like to talk a lot of smack. So that's kind of like where we landed, like very comfortable with each other. We would just kind of goof on each other while we were working, and it's just like, yeah, this person's really cool. So it's kind of like that familial relationship you have of like a sibling where you just kind of make fun of each other and get through the day, and it makes the work day a lot better. Have a lot of fun, but never anything, mean spirited, and just always really funny. Sharing like just memes back and forth. And it's good to find those kind of relationships. So that's kind of how Ren and I became buddies, just from that, just going back and forth and helping take the stress off of the animation that we are doing from that day by just making each other laugh and just having a good time while we're at work, especially working remotely.
Yeah. it's nice that your friendship was a remote fostered one because it's sometimes you see remote work and everyone's like, it's so lonely. But you were able to make like a really good friend online.
Yeah, exactly. And online friends have always been like a fun thing for me to do when I was a teenager. So working remotely and then going back to that again, it's like you just kind of feel like a teenager again.
So true. I have some really good friends from my last job because it was all remote, and I'm like, it was a little bit like that. Like, well, back to my natural form, making internet friends.
Wow. That's really taking me back to my Tumblr days. Like, I don't know if that's relevant to you guys, but that's how I made friends on the internet.
Marv
I never
says, "Take me back to my Tumblr days," but Marv is actively currently still on Tumblr.
And you'll never find out what my username is.
Uh, I have. Sorry, you go ahead, Marv.
For you, Joey, where did you find these internet friends as a teenager? Neopets? The
oh,
penguin?
I used to hang out on AIM a lot.
So like showing my age, it's like
Nice.
I am a child of the internet, so I was like molded by it a lot in my youth, just hanging out on AIM, going to random chat rooms, talking to random people, make it like finding the ones that weren't creepy, surprisingly. And
Yeah.
aside from that, like a lot of my high school days, live journal. The I'm was
Oh.
something I'm glad kind of got wiped away from the face of the internet. It's like everyone's very embarrassing tales of live journal. It's because who doesn't want to see a bunch of like heartbroken teenagers just pouring out their life?
That's that did take me. I like had whiplash because I definitely didn't grow up with AIM. I like discovered a computer when and AIM was on there, but I didn't use it because it quickly moved on to something else.
Yeah.
They have games with AIM emulators on them. I know I know someone who is a friend of mine has a child and he plays a game, and in that game there's a computer with AIM, so he plays that and he's really interested in bringing it back to the early 2000s of when people were on AIM. I don't know, he's an interesting kid, that's for sure. But he's all about that primitive technology, as he says.
Are you retro? Is that what he's trying to say? Like,
Y Yeah, I think he's just
suddenly,
he's just telling us we're old.
like there's costumes now that are like 90s because all the costumes used to be like up to the 80s, but like now 90s is a costume, and I had to like do a sit because that was too much.
Yeah, I saw
Yeah.
people wearing clothes that I wore in middle school, and then now it's a high school fashion choice, and it just makes me feel it puts me in a very odd place, like, "Oh, man, I feel old." This is
For
what
sure.
my grandparents felt like when I was saying, "Oh, hey, we're having 80s day."
Oh, yeah.
Was born in Texas. I forgot to mention this earlier. Was born in Texas, and then very young age I moved to Florida. And I heard you mention you bounced around in Florida too. Where in
Yeah,
Florida
definitely.
did you go?
Uh, we lived in a town called Winter Haven in Central Florida. Uh, so, like, Polk County, not too far from, Disney World, about, like, 30, 40 minutes out.
Yeah,
So I spent a lot of my teenage years hanging out in Orlando.
my family would go to Orlando every summer, not to go to the parks, but just to go to downtown Disney, and that was good enough for us because it was free.
Downtown Disney was my hang. I went there to go watch shows at the House of Blues for concerts, and I'd go watch a bunch of movies at AMC, and I would just spend all day there.
Okay, wait, Joey, did you ever go to Disney Quest?
I did. Disney Quest, the Virgin Megastore, everything that was there. They used to have this place called what is it called? I can't remember the name of it. What's the place in Pinocchio where they go to the island where all the kids are doing bad things? Pleasure Island.
Right. Yeah,
So, Pleasure Island was a big thing then too, and they would have concerts every Christmas. So I spent a lot of time in downtown Disney.
I never got to go to Disney Quest, and then they tore it down, and it was the saddest day. I always wanted to go inside.
It was it felt futuristic. I will say that. It was a really awesome place, and I miss it.
I'm so happy you got to experience Disney Quest for people like me. That's cool though. Downtown Disney forever. It's less fun now. Now it's just a mall.
Oh, that's sad.
It is a little sad. My family still goes and I go with them, and it's mostly like really just a mall. Like they took down a lot of what made it Disney. Like they even redid the hot air balloon. They used to have like all the characters on it, and they removed the characters. It's very corporate.
Oh wow. It's like the McDonald's facade being ripped away, where it was a fun childhood wonder and now it's business chic.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good word for it. It's very business chic now. But you remember how it used to be.
Can't take away my memories, that's for sure.
Yeah. Forever in our hearts.
Marv, any final questions for Joey?
Final questions. Mortal Kombat, who'd you main?
I don't know. I've always like ever since I was younger, I've always just played Sonya. So I'm gonna say Sonya. Just nothing cooler about that character. It's just a really fun character to play.
Marv, who's your Mortal Kombat main?
I've never played Mortal Kombat. The game that I do play is Pokemon Sleep, and that's it. But I learned from working with teens that that's a question you can ask and people have an answer to. So, Melissa's giving away my dirty secrets. It's true. I don't know what that means.
Who was the character you animated when you worked on Mortal Kombat?
I actually did effects on Mortal Kombat, so it's like
Oh, nice.
I didn't even do character animation. That's another thing of just saying yes. They're like, "Do you know how to do effects?" And I said, "No." They asked me if I'm willing to learn, and I did, and then I got to work on Mortal Kombat just because I said I would do it, and they let me learn for a whole 3 days of how to do it. And,
That's awesome.
yeah, so I worked really hard on that. I put a lot of hours, like, figuring things out, breaking things, so, like, a lot of blood and a lot of, like, lightning effects and everything else, but I did learn that there is a thing as too much blood, as I got told all the time. That's too much blood. It felt right to me. I was like, "This is Mortal Kombat. This should be, just screen covered in blood, right? That's how it goes."
Yeah. Yeah.
Tasteful.
Do you think this was influenced by your love of Italian slasher films?
Oh, 100%. Japanese horror movies specifically, though,
Oh, true.
because Japanese horror is especially those fun ones, it's just old samurai movies, just where cut someone, it's just blood nonstop. Also, Addams Family, when they do the throat slicing with the fencing swords.
That's a good reference. Amazing. Well, we loved chatting with you, Joey, and we're excited for everyone else to hear this and meet you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure speaking with you both.
Is there anything you'd like to plug?
Um, Nothing specifically that I'm doing at the moment, but go watch Vampire Clay. If you wanna just let your mind turn your brain off and watch something ridiculously fun.
I heard you're working on a short film. Would you like to share anything about that, or is that top secret?
Oh, it's one of those things, it's like it takes a while, so I'm constantly working on it. I've been working on it for a while where I was writing it, and then now I'm just actually pushing myself to do it, but I'm doing it all alone, so it's a lot of drawing because I decided I like to be a tortured artist who does who wants to do everything in 2D. So now now I get to do the thing where I get to learn and
Mm.
figure out how to do things so I can speed up my process without using AI. than
Nice.
just being a better artist.
Would love to hear it. Well, watch this space, everyone. Watch Joey's space, because in X amount of time, there will be a really cool short film that he made.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
That was our conversation with Joey. So fun. Let's say bye to our listeners. Bye, listeners.
Thank you for listening to Not One Right Way, the podcast.
Like, comment, subscribe, leave a kind review.
And remember, there is not
One
right
way
to love horror movies.
there's not one right way to learn how to animate anything.
There's not one right way to work on your favorite game and fulfill your childhood dreams.
There's not one right way to start working on your own short film. There's not one right way to name your files. Just kidding, there is one right way. There's always one right way. And please name your files correctly. Bye.
Bye.